Put down the beer can, we're on lunch.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Senator Dees, and I'm calling to order this meeting of the Joint Committee on Volunteer Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services. I'll look to see if we have a quorum. There's no quorum that's been established, so we'll have to wait on the approval of the previous minutes.
For the guests that's just coming in, any chair that's open, it doesn't matter, it's at the table, please take a seat.
Yeah, we don't want you to have to stay. So we have to make a call. Well, the next item on the agenda, the first item on the agenda will be a presentation. Today we have Director Jody Ratliff, who's the director of EMS, and we'll ask him to present his information today about the number of ambulance services and staff for EMS. Rachel, we'll ask you to stand and to take the oath, please. You swear to tell the whole, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a beautiful trip up this morning. So we'll kind of dive right into it. There's a lot of information that we're going to cover real quick. Like, I want to start with this. So from October 22 to October 23, this is our numbers. We had on the 911 response, we had 228,484. That's what we transported. And that's not how many times we got requested. That's just how many we transported. Okay, we had 44,820 transports in facilities, medical transports, for dialysis patients, for doctor's office visits, things like that. 147,614. For grand total, we transported 420,918. We get a response every 48 seconds. 911 response every 2 minutes, 18 seconds. Their facility is 122.7 a day. Medical transports 404 per day. What I want to be able to show you, and this will really come into play as we move into this, is how many agencies we have in each region. Now, this is just a blurb. Thing was sent out in an Excel spreadsheet, so you can see your county and all 55 counties. So, for example, Barber County has 15,414 people. In 23, they have 1,979 responses. They need 3 vehicles to cover their 911 responses. Now, the formula is a lot larger, and it's in your Excel spreadsheet that we sent you, so you can see the whole thing, how it all equals out, and how we come up with the numbers. Bartlett County has 129,000 plus. They had over 18,000 responses. 15 trucks is what's needed. Boone County, 20,000 plus, almost 21. They had over 5,000 responses, 3 vehicles required. The system that we use on this is called System Status Management. All the county uses the same system to maneuver their trucks around the county. But what it does, System Status Management, is basically it takes the least amount of trucks that you need to do the most good in your county. All right, you're getting the most out of the least amount of resources. That's why this is the minimum amount. Braxton, over 12,000, almost 2,000 responses. They need 2 trucks right now on 1 calls. Brooke County, over 21,000, over 3,000. They need 3. Cabell County, over 92,000, they have 24,000 responses. They need 11. Response times. So it happens where we're at. Ohio County had an average response time of 8.61. They're ranked number 1 in the state. All right, ambulances response time is measured in time, minutes between the initial call of emergency medical services EMS and when the patient is reached by an ambulance. Jefferson County second, 11.36. Hancock, Berkeley, and Kanawha. Work at Dallas, Summers, Clay, and Pendleton are the worst times. Now, let me say this. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you figure out, there's always going to be 5 worst, right? There's always going to be 51 through 55, but it's what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. I do want to say this, on the top 5, the best 5 response times, 3 of the 5 have either levies or fees. Bottom 5. Time on task. A task is measured in minutes. It's time from when the ambulance begins its response until it becomes available to respond to another call. Top 5. Upshur, Wood, Hancock, Randolph, and Berkeley. Bottom 5 is Pleasant, Daughters, Ritchie, Wyman, and Pendleton. The difference between these, top 5 have hospitals in their county. Bottom 5 do not. Remember from the last time I presented, 48% of the calls that happened from 911 started in one county and ended up in a different county. That's why they're last in the state. Mutual aid given. This one's important. Wayne County gets the most mutual aid from anybody else in the state of West Virginia. They get most of that mutual aid from Cabell County, 354 responses in a year's time. That's almost a call a day. Now, what we did put in there was how many responses that Wayne County gets from Kentucky, from Mingo, from Lincoln County. So there's more. We just put the highest number with Cabell County. Putnam County is next. They give 309 responses to Kanawha County. Watch out, it turns around. Next is Marion County. They get their most from Vaughn County. Next is Kanawha County, who gets their most from Putnam County. So what I want you to see is how Putnam County and Kanawha County are back and forth on this. They give the most mutual aid to each other. St. Albans. St. Albans is their busiest area, and they go back and forth all the time. Even though they run as many trucks as they can run, and they use it managed correctly, they're literally giving as much help as they can to each other. And then Worth County gets 116 mutual aids a year from St. Joe's. That's in Wood County. Reimbursement. This was another question that came up. ALS emergency. All right. So urban, because the way Medicare works, it breaks down to urban, rural, super rural, and then down to miles. So you bill on an ALS emergency or an ALS non-emergency, BLS emergency, BLS non-emergency, and then your mileage. So the average mile in West Virginia, believe it or not, is 16 miles. Obviously, rural counties a lot more, but the average mile is 16 miles, so we're based on 16 miles. So there's our numbers for what we get reimbursed for. Bring it into a little bit better light. Let's just say we go out on a 911 chest pain call with the average miles of 16 miles. Okay, the ALS treatment is going to be oxygen, nitro, IV, 12 lead, pain management. If you're urban and you run this call as an ALS provider, $603. If you're in the rural area, you'll get $679. And if you're in super rural, you'll get $785. Pretty low. Some of the numbers I want to throw at you. Make sure you have it. Total providers. We've got 1,837 ALS providers in the state. We've got 3,288 BLS providers in the state. We've got 1,036 EMVOs, emergency vehicle operators. That's not the real number. The real number is how many people we have working. Last year, from November to November, we had 3,215 providers running at least one call. Almost half the calls that was ran in the state last year was about 1,686 providers. So think about that. Almost half the calls, everything that we had, was ran just by 1,686 providers. How many trucks do we need in the state for 911 calls? 244. How many trucks do we need in the state for transports? 155 for a total of 399. How many providers do we need in the state? Active working providers. 25 to 5,000. Why is there such a large gap? I don't know if you're going to work a 24-hour shift or a 12-hour shift. That's up to each agency on whatever they work. If we go by 3 24s, with no extra, nobody takes a day off or anything, 2,500 providers cover 324 of those trucks, okay? The total calls that we had, not transport, how many times have we got called out on a call was over 1 million, 1,099,000. We ended up only transporting, what I say, 420,918. So over half of what we went out on, we don't get paid for. It's free. So somebody has to pay for it. These agencies pay for it. We have 2% of our trucks are CCT, 34% are paramedics. Or no, the calls ran, I'm sorry, the calls ran, 2% were CCT, 34% was ALS, 4% was by AEMTs, 1% was by nurse, 59% by basic life support. Just a few other numbers to throw at you, and this kind of comes down to our total numbers and how we know we got the number right with that. 89% of all the calls that happened last year was handled by 400 of the same trucks. And we've got well over 1,000 trucks. Most of those are backup trucks. They don't have butts in the seat. They're just backup trucks, okay? So almost 400 trucks were handled. 89% of the calls last year were handled by 400 trucks. So if you look at that 1,686 providers who ran all the calls last year, they ran them out of the exact same trucks. Those are the same providers doing the same thing that I did, working 80 hours a week for years, upon years, upon years. And we can't figure out why we're losing people. I know why they're burning out. They're running call after call, seeing death after death. If you've never experienced a chest pain, someone having a heart attack right in front of you, asking you if they're going to live, seeing that death in their face, that's pressure. Having family members stand over you while their 4-year-old is unresponsive and you're intubating them, that's pressure. They do it day in and day out, hours and hours and hours, and we're asking the same people to do this over and over and over. Mr. Chairman, I'll have it.
Thank you, Mr. Director. I'm open the floor for some questions in just a moment. Based upon what you were telling us, it seems like it's a big benefit to live in a county that has either fees or levies and have a hospital, right?
Yes, sir.
With that in mind, what possible practical solution do you have? You look at the numbers all the time. I absolutely numbers back up that the issue is that we have a problem. We need to take care of our EMS personnel. What kind of solution do you think is speaking?
I think the way that I would look at this is if we can get each county to provide at least a minimum amount of trucks in their county. What that does is when we look at mutual aid, it stops Mon County from going down to Marion County and can keep Forest truck in his county. It keeps Cabell County's trucks inside of Cabell County, and they're not going over to Wayne County all the time. When we do that, all of a sudden, each county is able to support the 911 system. There's always going to be some mutual aid, no matter how you look at it. Anybody who's been in the business knows you don't always know when that call is coming, and when they come, sometimes it's 10 at a time. But if we can find a way to keep trucks in the county and get each county supported into their EMS, the data proves counties that have fees or levies have the best times and they have the most trucks.
Very good. Also, follow-up question that I was thinking about. They make the most money on transports, correct? I mean,
yes, sir.
And the 911 calls are, it depends on insurance and a whole bunch of factors as far as the 911 calls go. The type of call and et cetera. With each county, could you tell us, and I believe you can, I think you may have already shared that with us, the number of trucks that each county needs, and would you propose that the county commissions come up with funds to take care of that? Because I know certain counties cannot afford an ambulance service. Monroe County, I know you're relatively familiar with Monroe County. And I was down there this past week just talking to some of the county commissioners and the emergency services down there. What possible solution could we come up for those small counties that can't afford emergency service?
I think the Ambulance Act of 1975 should be looked at closely. I think that the next presentation will give a lot more clarification on that question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Gentlemen, y'all have any questions for the director? Since we're done here, the chair recognizes the co-chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for going the numbers and getting those numbers to us, not updates, because we live with numbers. My question is, a couple things, a lot more than two, that have been looking at this issue. We're looking at counties that have basically no, how many counties, I guess I would ask you, they're probably in the report somewhere, has no active services in their county and either rely upon another county to cover them, or they have to contract some other agency to come in.
I don't have the number off the top of my head. If the county has service in one form or another, we would have to, I haven't pulled those numbers yet. We would have to get those numbers so I can get that back to you on how many counties have, whether they have contractors or whether they have, and then we could probably, well, in the, actually in your spreadsheet, you'll see what county does what mutual aid to what other county.
And the reason I'm asking that is that there has to be some kind of an agreement out there, I would think, even with the 1975 law that's very weak in how it's put out onto the books. But if you got a county, basically that another county is making a lot of runs, maybe even the majority of the runs. And the reason I'm asking is, and I won't name the counties, but I'm understanding that we had a situation lately that one county, their 911 dispatcher advised the caller that had a son that was having seizures to put them in the car because they didn't have an ambulance available in that county. Maybe they have ambulance, maybe they don't. I can see where a county could have them all out, but anyhow, get that child across the line in a neighboring county and call the 911 center in that county to help get dispatchers to get an ambulance there. My question, I guess, basically based upon that, and I'm not done all the research, I can't tell you if that's a guaranteed true story. You probably know, I don't. But the thing that I would wonder is, these counties that's providing services for other counties, is it getting out to the point where they're unwilling to send their ambulances into the next county? Unless it has to be a dire emergency, or maybe not even then, I don't know.
Yes, I can't speak for all the counties on mutual aid, but for the bigger counties, it's dwindling down their resources to the point of where they're starting to say no, or they're starting to say only if we have available trucks that we can send you. Otherwise, we can't help.
Do you know the scenario I just given you? Do you know whether that took place? Again, I'm not interested in the counties.
The scenario that you mentioned, it was close. It was reported to me that it was a 4-year-old child that was had status somaticus, and they could not get an ambulance. No response in that county, and the 911 dispatcher told them to load the child and go to the next county over, and as soon as they cross the county line, call 911.
And I would say that you hate to see those situations that happen out there. And I can tell you that I've never been, nor we never will be, a 911 dispatcher. But I can tell you that there would be scenarios where it could be feasible to say you need to load them in a vehicle, start toward the medical center. We're going to start emergency services your way. and meet halfway. That's not uncommon in some of these outlying areas. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the chairman asked you, I don't know how to phrase it to you, but, and I said to a lot of people that I don't think we as the citizens of West Virginia realize how critical of a situation that we are in this state, especially in certain areas of the state. Because it's fine if you have one county covering another county and they're close by. And there's always a give and take into that area. Because if you have an ambulance out of your county and another county trying to help them and something goes into your county, you can't just say, sorry, Charlie, I've got to go to my county. You bear out the best way you know how. Because it can't leave the scene of where they're at. And these are scenarios that's playing out across the state of West Virginia today. And I'm not sure that they're getting reported, nor am I positive that this committee knows entirely a lot of these situations are going on. And so the number of emergency vehicles and the this time is what really cost a lot of money. It's setting up there. Is this the reason also that we're missing and we don't have transport available? Because even though a person is in a hospital, stabilized, needs transport to another facility, maybe for more care or greater care, if you don't have the transport to get them there, that also can be just as a critical situation as we described. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Your opinion, I don't want to ask your opinion. Are we in the dire situation that I feel that we are in? Or am I over dramatizing?
When we only had 1,686 providers run almost half the calls in the state last year. And we need at the bare minimum 2,500 just to do a 24-hour shift, three 24s. I think we're, my opinion is I think we're there.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. We always hear in these meetings and elsewhere about the frequent flyers and the emergency situations. People are calling 911 and are not a true emergency, but you may need to go to a system for whatever reasons. Do you have a number of the percentage of times that those calls are coming in across the state?
No, sir, we don't. The only things that we can see is how many charts were uploaded. If EMS did a chart on something, whether it be a refusal, whether it be whatever, a transport, whatever the case might be, that's all we can see.
Thank you. Again, thank you for what you do. You've made a tremendous effort in changing things in the state of West Virginia. I appreciate that. I appreciate you and all the other folks in this room that does this work. I don't know if we ever give enough thanks out there because money's one thing, but just to be appreciated for what you do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does the committee have any other questions for?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jody. Thank you for that dose of reality of the pressure. It's something I guess we don't think about as common folk that, just see the ambulance going up the hill by the house or sitting along car wrecks. That's certainly a reality check in my eyes. And I think Delegate Sadler asked the question, but I may have missed it. Personnel. I see how more trucks helps. Okay, I think that's easy math. But with more trucks, you also need more personnel. Or do we have that? Because you talk about working 80-hour weeks and all that. But with more trucks, do we need more personnel?
It's more personnel. So whenever we say trucks, think 2 people to a truck. Right. So we have over 1,000 trucks throughout the state,
Okay.
certified trucks. But right now, as far as the providers go to work, the 400 trucks that we need every single day, again, 1,686.
To another personnel.
We need personnel.
And the solution you would propose to more personnel. I mean, it's a tough job, so I mean,
So yes, sir, it is. So when we talk about recruitment and retention, things like that, even though my office can't do much, but from a provider standpoint, right now, the couple of the biggest things is, funding to help with pay, because
enhancing pay.
has to pay,
Okay.
one of those pay, and some type of retirement system for, it, I think are two big things they need.
So what would be the average pay?
We have them. I don't have them in front of me. I know the MS Coalition has them. I do know that. I just don't have them in front of me.
Does levies help enhance pay? Is that why you tried to make the tie with counties that have levies versus the county? I know there was kind of an
Yes.
insinuation there, but I was trying to read
That's the
between the
time,
lines.
yes, sir. That's the time. That it
More pay.
will pay much more. Yes.
Makes sense. And do any of those levy counties provide some type of, you said, pension?
So if it is if it's a county, the providers are they work for the county, they're employees of the county, then they get to the state retirement.
What about like Marion County residents?
They would have their own retirement.
They would have their own.
Yes, because I don't think, they're not county work as far as I know.
No, they're, I think.
So they'll probably have like a 401k. No, or it could be, they could also go into the EMSR, which is the EMS retirement for the state.
So would you suggest that we look at making something uniform or leaving it up to each individual county, or do you even have a suggestion?
I would, me personally, I would suggest uniform across the state.
Thank you, thanks again. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for the director? Yes, Doug and Jen.
Yes, thank you, Jim. One of the questions I have, you showed what the bill was for each one of those runs. What is the pay on each one of those runs? Is it, in other words, if they make that run, they send in this bill, like for Medicaid, Medicare, it's not quite that high. is it?
No, sir. So Medicaid, you'll get what you bill for. If that's it, typically you'll get close to that Medicaid. Medicare, take 20% off that.
And then, if anything is marked wrong on their sheet and they deem it not an emergency, you could lose the whole thing.
The insurance can kick it back, then you'll have to go through the appeal process. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes.
The chair recognizes the co-chair.
And I apologize for rolling this out, but I think these are issues that are important that we get out there and we get this out the air so we can find a solution. But my question is, and I don't know if you have statistics for it, looking around the room and our firefighter friends are in here also. Do you have a statistic that shows how many times the calls are that they are assisted by one form or another of usual aid from a fire company that's there helping? Because you said you had two members usually going out with those ambulances.
So we'll have two providers inside the ambulance to respond to ambulance. But as far as, I have numbers, but I don't have accurate numbers, I'll be honest with you. So the only way I know that if a fire department, first response fire department comes out is if they are certified through OEMS and they turn in a chart. That way I know. If it is a fire department inside of a county where they're working underneath the underneath the EMS agency, I won't know that number.
Would it be safe to say that in some instances that either it's usually a volunteer fire company, that in the outlying areas or rural areas like where I'm at, that it's feasible that the fire department will get there first and start some kind of a procedure, then turn it over to the EMS services when they get there? Would that be a correct statement?
Yes, sir, it would be.
And you don't have the numbers on how many times that happens, because I think that's also critical in thinking about how many times in the EMS services and try their best to get there. If somebody's closer, and I've often said, if I'm having a heart attack, I don't care who gets there and jump on my chest first. Does somebody get there? And I don't care if it's fire or EMS. I know who's going to transport. But I think it's a hand in hand situation that we need to recognize, and I'd like to see some numbers on that, if there's any way possible that can be done.
I can work on it. Best I can do.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. The chair recognizes, Delegate Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Director, just a couple questions. Do we have the current agencies that are in operation, do we have them placed properly around the state as far as geographical boundaries?
It's a hard question to answer. So if we took a look in each county and worked with each agency inside of each county with the system status management, we would have a better idea if the trucks, not necessarily the agency, but the trucks are themselves are stationed in the proper area. But it really comes down to get down to the weeds of each county. I will say that I just spoke to a commissioner and a director in a county that I used to run, and they want that information from us, and we were able to provide that information. Now, we can't tell them what to do. Obviously, that's not part of our office. What we can do is basically take the map of their county and show them time of day, day of week, week of month, month of year, where their calls are happening from. And again, with system status management, around the 93% is accurate on when the next call is going to happen.
Just follow up. Okay, so two problems with response time. You're gonna go where the money is, so you go where the populace is. And if I'm an independent business, which most of the outside folks are, they're gonna go where they're gonna get the number of calls to increase profitability. So the question is, how do we get placement properly, but still maintain a profitability for the folks that are not attached to the fire departments?
So you're asking how an EMS agency can be profitable when they're working under the cost of reimbursement.
Yes.
It has to come in form of levies and placing your truck in the best areas of where the next call is going to happen.
How does that cost ever go back to the insurers of those homes and those people in those homes? I mean, do they not, do the payor not paying anything towards, you see what I'm saying? If I have homeowners insurance and God forbid, one of my loved ones is on the floor, the county has to pay for that you got to my house?
So let's just, for an example, if it's a working code, we come to your house and we work the code and we innovate and we defibrillate and we start an IV and we give epi. We do all these things that we can do when we're working code. Do we get paid for what we just did? No. If we transport the body to the nurse or to the funeral home, we get the BLS load fee. Pull it back up and we would get the BLS load fee, which is 300. Look at some of the folks in here, 300 some odd dollars for the BLS load fee. So does that reimburse us for what we just did? No.
Chair recognizes, Delegate Jim.
Okay, one other question, where you talk about each county, you're gonna designate or have them designate where we could position. A lot of times in a county, right on the county border is close to a lot of people over here. And when the call comes down, the 911 tries to get that in county, but this other county could be there much sooner. We need to make legislation where, I know the dispatchers, they try their best to get the fastest one there. But then there's hesitation because then you're tromping on other people's ground and all that. Do we need to make legislation that allows these dispatchers to call the other dispatch, they send your truck, you're 15 minutes closer than our closest truck?
I wouldn't say we need to make legislation because it happens right now. I mean, just that, I can tell you right now, I wish someone was in Kanawha County, but when I was running in Roane County, I was running the agency up there on the southern end of the county. There's a lot of times that as long as that Clendenin station was there, if the truck was at station, they could get to the lower part of Roane County. And what we would do is we would dispatch our truck and immediately call Kanawha County if it was a serious call to see which one could get there faster.
That would work unless the county that they're asking to come and do it, if they felt, we've already got a truck out, we can't send our other truck out, so.
If they can't do it, then if they're not.
And it's because they feel they've got to take care of their people.
Yes.
But if the state would pass legislation where their people is West Virginia, period. And if you can get there closer, then go. Maybe we could cross in the truck that's 15 minutes away over to back up. Because you still got turnaround time and everything to get back on track. Just something I was, to look at, see if we need to pass some type of legislation for that. Thank you.
One last question,
Yes, I promise.
and how much, does a truck cost, as far as, say, we saw the numbers, 2, 3, trucks, but to run a year, what would be a budget, for, let's do one truck, just keep the math simple. One truck is about $400,000 a year, is that close?
Depends on there's a lot of things that go into it, sir. It can be anywhere, I would say a good general average of 400,000 plus.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for the director? Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. All right, the next item on our agenda is, House Finance Analyst Simon Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take a couple minutes to pass out my presentation to the guests that came in. I don't have anything else on the screen. And that's due to the nature of the budget itself. Sometimes when you get like a PowerPoint presentation, it can be a little confusing. So the best way I figure is just to look through it old-fashioned way. But the purpose of this presentation, Mr. Chairman, is to showcase what is appropriated to fire and EMS through the state budget bill. And there's a variety of things that come through the budget bill that subsidize, both fire and EMS services. They're spread across special federal general revenue items, and some exist that are embedded within other items. Some exist as their own items. And what I want to do is kind of walk the committee through and explain what it looks like in the budget, bill. One quick thing I want to lay down as background is the difference between what we fund fire and EMS through the budget and how it's funded through statute. So a significant portion of state funding received by volunteer fire departments comes through existing code procedures, and it's not explicitly found within the current budget bill. They function sort of autonomously, so only by appropriating new funds into these accounts do we see them appear in the budget bill. So a good example are the Fire Protection Fund, the Municipal Pensions Protection Fund, and the Fire Service Equipment Training Fund, and the two special funds that were created by Senate Bill 1022. All of those you won't actually see in the budget bill going forward because there's this statutory code, kind of automated funding processes. But that's not the focus of this breakdown, but I do want to lay that background for the committee. So if we go to page 1, we'll start with fire, and we'll just start in general revenue. You'll see that we have the Department of Homeland Security, and I've highlighted the section that deals with fire and EMS, and you'll see that $200,000 goes to the West Virginia Fire and EMS Survivor Benefit. So that is an example of something that's inside of another item in general revenue. The next page has the Division of Emergency Management. And within that, you'll see what happened in Senate Bill 1022, the $12 million. And this is, again, how it appears in the budget bill. So I've included the whole item. So if you go down to the language underneath the actual line items, you'll see that I've highlighted on the next page the directive language that sends that money to the respective accounts. So you have the 12 million. You can see on line 21 there that 3 million goes to the All County Fire Protection Fund, 3 million to the County Fire Protection Fund, and 6 million to the Fire Protection. And then going down, we have the Fire Commission. And then at the bottom of page 4, we have item number 107, West Virginia University. And within West Virginia University's budget, you see Jackson Mill has an appropriation of $510,382. Of that, $250,000 goes to the West Virginia State Fire Training Academy. You can see that at the bottom of page 4, in lines 10 and 11 in the directive language. So that's a very good example of how we sort of fund through other items. Going on to special revenue for fire services, we see that the auditor's office has a special revenue account of 2.5 million. This is actually an old statutory account for when the state compensated workers' comp subsidies. So that's been zeroed out. There's no money in that account, but there was money that came up, so that had to be taken care of. We have the fire commission, and on the next page, federal revenue. We have some more of the fire commission. That's just where the money comes from, federal and special revenue sources. Going to page 7, we'll switch over to EMS and go back to general revenue. So we have the Division of Health, and within the Division of Health, I've highlighted the statewide EMS program support. So that's about $1.7 million. And on the next page, again, I've just included everything so you can see how it would appear in the budget. I've highlighted the directive language there that shows the fund number and the appropriation number. On page 9, we have the Division of Emergency Management, and then that whole line item, as a lot of it goes to EMS services, not really anything to highlight. And then page 10 is just more directive language. Page 11 in special revenue is the Emergency Medical Service Worker Salary Enhancement Fund. Now that's something that we did out of the surplus section. It was transferred from the surplus section to special revenue so that it could be distributed properly. So that's why you see that there. The next page has federal revenue. And you see the Division of Emergency Management has some federal revenue accounts. And then finally, on page 13, you'll see where we inserted the salary enhancements, the 10 million. We had to do it in surplus and then transfer back into special revenue. And that's all of the budget items that directly fund. Oh, I'm so sorry, you're also taking here. Those are all the budget items that directly fund fire and EMS. And now, like I said before, there are a lot of funding sources that come from outside of the budget through statute. But I wanted to provide this packet to the committee so that you all can kind of understand when you open the budget bill itself, you can see, okay, here's the line item, here's where the fire and EMS is, and maybe that can help serve as a reference to the committee and help give us a better idea of where the dollars are moving. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Be happy to take any questions.
All right, I'll start. Now, remember, I'm a psychology and history major, so you're talking language to Henry. I understand the budget and where the line items are. Can you just put it in layman's terms that this is roughly about how much money goes to EMS each year total? Because where it's broken down so much, I understand that, the total for EMS, the total for fire each year.
I don't have those exact numbers on me, Mr. Chairman, but what I can tell you is that general revenue is what the state gives out of its money. Anything that's special or federal comes from other sources. So federal obviously comes from the federal government. Special revenue is generated through any sorts of fees, levies, anything like that. Those will all be special revenue. So again, I didn't add up all the numbers, but if you look at the general revenue accounts, it's probably somewhere upwards of, I would say, combined fire and EMS, probably 20+ million.
Just general revenue.
Of just general revenue. Again, that's an approximation. I haven't actually added.
Absolutely. I'm not gonna hold you to specific pennies or anything there, but there are also other funding sources too, like you already mentioned.
That's correct. And those are more intricate and found in current code, which isn't exactly my forte, but I have a basic understanding of how that works.
Very good. Anyone from the committee have any questions? The chair recognizes the coach.
I will tell you, I'll keep this short today, but we'll follow up with you on some things because you brought some things out to light there and I want to dive into deeper at another time. But if I'm understanding correctly, the auditor's office at one time, I believe, had $2.5 million is where that funding came out of that worked on workman comp for the volunteer fire company.
Yes.
And you're saying there is no money in that any longer, so now the volunteer fire companies no longer get that subsidy to help pay for the workman comp.
That's correct. That ended, I believe in 2020. That is when that provision ended. The compensation for volunteer fire departments extended longer than the rest of the state. So we held out on that, and I believe code references that was the end of 2020.
And you mentioned that there is, I guess, it's not in the budget, there's other statutory areas that funding does come from the state that goes into these agencies. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, sir. So there are several accounts in which statute directs money to be given to volunteer fire departments. And those exist primarily in the Fire Protection Fund, the Municipal Pensions and Protection Fund, the Fire Service Equipment and Training Fund, and the new funds that we created in Senate Bill 1022. Those funds receive money out of statute and do not appear in the budget.
And when you say statute, that's the money that is placed against the homeowners and casualty and that type of thing. So that's the money that's collected there and then distributed among the 428 fire departments.
Yes,
And none of that money goes into emergency services as far as EMS services all the beginning, right?
not that I'm aware of, sir. No.
Okay, and, I'm not sure what this, 1.722 million statewide EMS program supports. I'm not, this is the first, I guess, basically, that I've really, this is drawing my attention, even though I said on finance, so seen it go across before, but it's page 7, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what that funding is used for?
I tried to reach out to the agency before this meeting, but in the midst of what's happening with the Division of Health and Human Resources, and they break up, it's a little confusing. I don't feel like I have enough to give the committee this time, but I did try and look into it. I just don't have it there.
If you could follow up on that and get us that information.
Of course.
Working with that, people would be interested in where that money's going, directed to and what's going to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Any other questions from the committee? Thanks, sir, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any other business before this committee?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that, I'm getting, several requests from around the state, requesting the information that we're seeing, they're listening, and, they don't have the information in the form. So I would ask that the presenters, they would honor those requests, and I believe they will, so that this public information can get out to the public, and if they have questions, then they can get back to us, or we'll try to find them the answer. So I would ask the staff be directed, that if they get to 3 days, we need to honor that request.
Yes, we'll ask, the staff, Drew, to make sure all this is published on, public. Thanks. Anything else? The chair looks to the co-chair for a motion.
I'm going to return.
There's been a motion for adjournment. Those in favor say aye. Not there, another motion.
See.
See.